The mechanic's laughter cut through the dingy garage like a rusty blade. "You spent your last $500 on this. Lady, you got scammed." His words hung in the air as other mechanics stopped their work to stare. Eleanor Parker kept her spine straight, her hand firmly gripping the flaking door handle of the 1981 Buick Regal. The car was a wreck, paint peeling like dead skin, windows clouded with a film of grime and neglect, no keys, no registration. It hadn't run in decades. Beside her, her 12-year-old son Tommy shrank into himself, his cheeks burning with embarrassment. But Eleanor didn't flinch. The jade green of her eyes hardened into emeralds, reflecting the determination that had kept her going these past 6 months. Sometimes, when the world has beaten you down to your last dollar, a feeling is all you've got left. And Eleanor had a feeling about this car. 6 months ago, Eleanor was a pediatric nurse at Mercy Children's Hospital in Chicago. Life wasn't easy as a single mother, but it was stable. Her apartment in Rogers Park wasn't fancy, but it was home. She could afford Tommy's asthma medication and even managed to put aside a little each month for his college fund. Then Mercy merged with a larger healthcare network, and her department was restructured out of existence. No severance, no warning. Just a security guard watching as she packed her desk into a cardboard box. The months that followed were a blur of rejection emails, temporary jobs and mounting bills, fast food, cleaning service, night shifts at the 24-hour gas station where men stared too long and tipped too little. She worked double just to afford bread and an inhaler that cost more than her weekly pay. Eleanor's world contracted to a series of urgent calculations: which bill to pay first, how to stretch a can of soup into 2 meals, whether Tommy's wheezing warranted dipping into the ever-dwindling emergency fund. The final blow came when their landlord handed her a 30-day eviction notice. "Building's been sold," he said, not meeting her eyes. "New owners are renovating. You're no longer a good fit." 20 years in the neighborhood, but gentrification had no sentimentality. When she checked her bank account that night, the balance read $513.27, enough for 3 more nights at the Lakeview Motel, or a miracle. She found the ad on Craigslist at 2 a.m., scrolling through listings for cars under $1,000. The photo was blurry. Old Buick as is, abandoned for years. Buyer must tow, asking $500 or best offer. Most people would have scrolled past it. Eleanor zoomed in. Something about the cracked leather seats, the sunburnt dashboard. It felt familiar, like it was waiting for her. If you are enjoying the story, type 5 in the comments and subscribe for more videos like this. If not, type ZO, it helps me create even better content for you. Continuing. "Elle, you can't be serious," said Marjorie, her best friend since nursing school. They sat in Marjorie's kitchen while Tommy played video games with her kids in the living room. "That car won't save you. It'll bury you." "Do you have a better idea?" Eleanor asked, pushing away the mug of tea that had gone cold. "The shelters are full. We can live in it until I find something more permanent." "You can stay with us," Marjorie offered, not for the first time. "In your 2-bedroom with 3 kids? For how long? Months? A year?" Eleanor shook her head. "I need to do something. I need to try." The next morning, she contacted the seller, a gruff man who didn't ask questions, didn't even make eye contact, just accepted her cash and handed over a faded title with the name Josephine Dale scratched out and replaced with Eleanor's. As he walked away, she thought she saw relief in the slump of his shoulders. It took most of the day and her last $13 to get the Buick towed to Hank's Auto Yard, which agreed to let her store it for 48 hours. Tommy was skeptical as they approached the vehicle together. "We can't sleep in a car that doesn't run, Mom." "I know," she said, squeezing his shoulder, "but something's telling me it's not just a car." The first thing they noticed inside was the smell, not of mold or rot, but lavender. Faint, like a perfume from a different era. The second thing was the glove compartment, locked. Eleanor's fingers trembled as she pried it open with a flathead screwdriver borrowed from the yard. Inside were yellowed papers, an old wallet, and a small velvet pouch. She opened the pouch. Inside was a key, not to the car. Something older, ornate, like it belonged to a jewelry box from another century. The wallet held an expired driver's license belonging to Josephine Dale, a stern-looking woman with intelligent eyes. Eleanor had never heard of her. There were also photographs, dozens. A woman in a white lab coat standing beside this very car. In one, she was holding up a small vial to the light, her eyes lit with triumph. On the back, scrawled in neat cursive, "Prototype successful. No more pain, no more patents. May 1987. Will Eleanor discover what this mysterious woman was hiding? What secrets does this abandoned car hold? And could they possibly be the miracle she so desperately needs? The answers might surprise you. "Mom, look at this," Tommy called from the back seat. He had found something wedged between the cushions, a notebook, its cover faded to the color of weak tea. Inside were pages of neat handwriting, diagrams, of molecular structures, and lists of compounds that made Eleanor's nurse's brain tingle with recognition. The notebook contained the research notes of Dr. Josephine Dale, a brilliant biochemist who had been developing a treatment for Carter's syndrome, a rare autoimmune disease that Eleanor had seen ravage the children she once cared for. According to the notes, Josephine had created a natural compound that effectively treated the disease without side effects. But then, something had gone wrong. The final pages were written in a hurried scrawl. "They offered me $2 million to hand it over, said it would be shelved. Too effective. No recurring revenue." I refused. 2 days later, someone broke into my lab. "I've hidden everything in the car. If you're reading this, you've found it. Don't let them bury the cure again." Eleanor's heart pounded. This wasn't just a forgotten car. It was a time capsule of truth and possibly of hope. The next day, Eleanor returned with Tommy and a borrowed toolbox from Sam, a retired mechanic who lived next to the auto yard. When she told him about the Buick, he chuckled but followed her anyway. As he opened the hood, his expression changed from amusement to confusion. "That's not standard," he said, pointing to a compartment behind the engine block. Sam reached in, unscrewed 2 bolts, and pulled out a small metal container, like something from a spy movie. It had a combination lock. No branding, no label. "Any idea what the combination might be?" Sam asked. Eleanor thought about the ornate key they'd found. The lock on the container was digital, 4 numbers. She studied the driver's license again. Josephine's birthday, 04-28. The lock clicked open on the first try. Inside was a sealed vial of amber liquid and a small flash drive. Tommy's eyes widened. "Mom, this is like a real-life treasure hunt." Eleanor wasn't sure if it was treasure or trouble, but she knew they needed help to find out. She contacted her former supervisor from the hospital, Dr. Chen, a respected medical researcher, and asked to meet. Over coffee at a quiet diner, Eleanor showed her the notebook and the vial. Dr. Chen's eyes grew wider with each page she turned. "If this data is legitimate, it's revolutionary," she whispered. Josephine Dale. I remember hearing about her. She disappeared in the late 80s. Everyone thought she'd had a breakdown. "What's on the flash drive?" Eleanor asked. "We should find out," Dr. Chen said, closing the notebook carefully. "But Eleanor, if what's written here is true, be careful, very careful. Have you ever stumbled upon something unexpected that changed the course of your life? Or do you know someone who has? Let me know in the comments below." The next morning, Eleanor met Dr. Chen at her university laboratory. With Tommy waiting in the adjacent office, they examined the contents of the flash drive. It contained detailed research files, clinical trial data, and video logs of Josephine herself, documenting her work. This compound, Dr. Chen said, pointing to a molecular diagram on the screen. It's unlike anything in current treatment protocols. It targets the autoimmune response without suppressing the entire immune system. Could it work? Eleanor asked. Based on her data? Yes, it could. You'll save thousands of lives. Dr. Chen's voice dropped. But Eleanor, this would be worth billions to pharmaceutical companies. If Josephine is right about why she disappeared, then we need to be careful, Eleanor finished. They made copies of everything and secured the original vial and documents. Dr. Chen introduced Eleanor to Catherine Weiss, an investigative journalist specializing in medical ethics. Together, they began to piece together Josephine's story and the significance of her discovery. That evening, as Eleanor and Tommy returned to the motel room they'd managed to afford for one more night, a black SUV was parked across the street. "Don't look," she told Tommy, guiding him inside with a hand on his shoulder. She tried to convince herself it was nothing, just coincidence. The next day, when they returned to the auto yard, the Buick's tires had been slashed. A note was tucked under the windshield wiper, "Walk away while you can." Eleanor's hands shook as she read it, but her resolve hardened. She thought of the children she'd watched suffer from Carter's syndrome, of Josephine, who had risked everything to protect her discovery, of Tommy, who needed his mother to be brave. "What are we going to do?" Tommy asked, his voice small, but his eyes trusting. "We're going to do what's right," Eleanor answered. With Dr. Chen and Catherine's help, they devised a plan. They would go public with Josephine's research, but they needed protection first. Catherine had contacts at the FBI who specialized in pharmaceutical crimes. Within days, they were sitting in a federal building, laying out their evidence. Special Agent Marcus Rivera listened carefully. "This will take time to verify," he said. "But if what you're saying is true, it could be one of the biggest medical cover-ups we've seen." "We don't have time," Eleanor countered. "They already know we have it." As if confirming her fears, her phone buzzed with a text from Marjorie. "Men in suits came asking for you. Said they were from insurance. Didn't believe them. Be careful." Who are these mysterious figures pursuing Eleanor and Tommy? What lengths will they go to in order to recover Josephine's lost research? As danger closes in, Eleanor must make a choice that could change medicine forever. 3 days later, a woman in a silk blazer and heels approached Eleanor outside the auto yard. "Miss Parker, I represent Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals. We're interested in purchasing the vehicle you recently acquired." "How did you know I had it?" Eleanor asked, heart hammering. The woman smiled tightly. "We monitor certain records. We're prepared to offer $50,000 cash. Today, no questions asked." Eleanor thought of the motel bill she couldn't pay, of Tommy's college fund that had been emptied, of stability just a signature away. Then she thought of Josephine's words, "Don't let them bury the cure again." "It's not for sale," she said firmly. The woman's smile disappeared. "Are you sure you understand what you're holding? Some things are best left undiscovered." Tommy, standing nearby, moved closer to his mother. "Mum, I'm scared." "Don't be," Eleanor said, putting an arm around him. "We're doing the right thing." The woman left, but the threat lingered. That night, Tommy's inhaler failed during an asthma attack. Eleanor discovered it had been tampered with, emptied. They spent the night in the emergency room, Tommy's breathing finally stabilizing near dawn. The following day, the brakes on. Sam's truck, which he had lent them, gave out completely while Eleanor was driving. Only her quick thinking prevented a serious accident. They were being warned. Special Agent Rivera arranged for Eleanor and Tommy to be moved to a safe house. While the FBI investigated further, Catherine's article was ready to publish, pending final verification of the research by Dr. Chen's team. "We can end this, right?" Tommy asked one night as Eleanor tucked him into bed in the sparse but secure apartment. "The bad guys will go. To jail, and the medicine will help sick kids. Eleanor wished she could promise him a happy ending. "We're going to try," she said instead. The verification came through a week later. Dr. Chen's team had synthesized Josephine's compound and confirmed its effectiveness in lab tests. "It works," she told Eleanor over a secure line. "It actually works." With this confirmation, Catherine's exposé went live. Hidden Cure: How a Single Mother Uncovered a Decades-Old Medical Cover-Up. The story exploded across national news. Suddenly, Eleanor and Josephine Dale were household names. Former employees of Radcliffe Pharmaceuticals came forward, confirming the company had systematically suppressed multiple discoveries that threatened their profit margins. Have you or someone you know ever stood up against something wrong, even when it was difficult? Share your experience in the comments. The man who had sold Eleanor the car was identified as Frank Miller, a former janitor at Radcliffe's research division. Overcome by guilt after years of silence, he had preserved Josephine's car instead of destroying it as ordered. When FBI agents questioned him, he turned over more evidence, including a recorded confession from a now-deceased executive detailing the plot against Josephine. As public outcry grew, Radcliffe's stock plummeted. Congressional hearings were announced. The FBI expanded its investigation to include other potentially suppressed treatments, and through it all, Eleanor and Tommy remained in protective custody, watching the world change because of one abandoned car and the courage to look inside. 3 months later, as the legal battles raged on, Eleanor received news that changed everything. Dr. Chen's team had received emergency approval to begin clinical trials of Josephine's treatment, now named the Dale Protocol, on children with Cathers syndrome. "We need a nurse coordinator," Dr. Chen told Eleanor, "someone who understands both the medicine and what's at stake, someone brave." Eleanor accepted on the spot. The first patients arrived a month later, children Eleanor had once cared for at Mercy, now reunited with their former nurse under circumstances none could have imagined. Among them was 6-year-old Lily, whose disease had progressed so far that her parents had been told to prepare for the worst. 2 weeks into treatment, Lily's blood work showed improvement. A month in, she was running down hospital corridors, her laughter echoing like music. What will happen when Eleanor finally confronts the truth about Josephine Dale? Will justice prevail against those who would suppress life-saving cures for profit? As the final pieces fall into place, Eleanor discovers that the greatest legacy may be the one we never expected to leave. 6 months after finding the Buick, Eleanor stood in a courtroom, testifying against Radcliffe's former CEO. The evidence was overwhelming. Internal memos, financial records, witness testimonies. The company that had once threatened her now faced criminal charges and billions in damages. "How did you find the courage to continue?" the prosecutor asked her. Eleanor thought for a moment. "When you've lost everything," she said, "the only thing left to lose is your integrity. I couldn't sacrifice that too." The trial concluded with guilty verdicts across the board. The Dale Protocol was fast-tracked for approval after showing unprecedented success rates. A foundation was established in Josephine's name to continue research into other suppressed treatments. As for Eleanor and Tommy, they were offered a new home by the foundation, a modest house near the research center where she now worked as the lead nursing coordinator. Tommy's asthma had improved with proper care, and he had joined the school science club, inspired by the events that had transformed their lives. 1 year to the day after Eleanor had spent her last $500 on an abandoned car, she stood beside the fully restored 1981 Buick Regal, now part of a permanent exhibit at the Chicago Museum of Science and Industry. The display chronicled Josephine Dale's work and the remarkable chain of events that had brought her research to light. "Do you think she knew?" Tommy asked, running his hand along the car's now gleaming hood. "Do you think she knew someone like you would find it?" "I think she hoped," Eleanor replied. Sometimes hope is all we have. As visitors filed past the exhibit, Eleanor noticed an elderly man lingering nearby. He approached slowly, his eyes fixed on the car with an expression of disbelief. "I never thought I'd see it again," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I was her research assistant, you know. When they came for her, she made me promise to hide the car, to keep it safe until the right person found it." Eleanor's heart skipped. "Did she escape? Did she survive?" The man smiled sadly. "No one who knew for sure. She disappeared that night, but she always said that truth finds a way, that courage reveals itself when needed most." He handed Eleanor a small envelope, yellowed with age. "She left this with me, said to give it to whoever found the car. I've been following your story. It's you." Inside the envelope was a key, the twin of the ornate one Eleanor had found in the velvet pouch, and a note. "To the finder of my legacy, some treasures aren't meant to be buried. Some truths refuse to stay hidden. Thank you for your courage. The second key opens the beginning." Eleanor frowned. "The beginning?" The elderly man nodded toward the museum's east wing. "Josephine's family home. It's been preserved as a historical site. The foundation purchased it last month." The next day, Eleanor and Tommy stood on the porch of a Victorian house on the outskirts of Chicago. The key fit perfectly in the lock. Inside, they found Josephine's original laboratory, preserved just as she had left it nearly 4 decades earlier. On the central workbench was a journal, its pages filled with research that went far beyond Carter's syndrome. Treatments for diseases considered incurable, approaches to medicine that pharmaceutical companies had dismissed as unprofitable. "It's a lifetime of work," Eleanor whispered, turning the pages with reverent fingers. "And now it's yours," Tommy said, "to continue." As they stood in that room, filled with forgotten knowledge and renewed hope, Eleanor realized that sometimes the greatest treasures aren't gold or jewels. Sometimes they're rusty cars with secrets hidden inside. Sometimes they're chances to right old wrongs. And sometimes they're the courage to believe in miracles when everyone else has given up. 1 year later, the Dale Foundation had grown into a leading research institution. Eleanor, now its director of patient advocacy, watched as children who had once faced death sentences played in the sunshine outside her office window. Tommy, now 14, volunteered there after school, already talking about medical school, and following in Josephine's footsteps. And in the garden behind the foundation stood the Buick, restored to its former glory, a monument to one woman's brilliance and another's courage. A reminder that even in our darkest hours, hope finds a way, that legacy isn't always what we plan, but what we dare to protect. As Eleanor walked toward the children, a faint scent of lavender drifted on the breeze, and somewhere she could almost hear Josephine whisper, "Thank you." Congratulations. Type 9 in the comments so that I know you stayed until the end with me. Thank you for watching, and until tomorrow's story on this same channel.